So we're on part 2 of the ways that being older can actually work in your favour in the workplace. I'm normally comfortably the oldest person in the room at work, and as I have no intention of retiring anytime soon, that's something I'm really interested in. There are traps that you can fall into that mean you're seen as just the old guy or girl in the office. In the last video we covered the hacks and tricks to make meetings a great time to shine, and in this video I'm going to cover some of the everyday elements that will ensure that you're respected and valued as a member of the team no matter what age you are. We'll look at tech, we'll cover everyday interactions with your team members, and I'll be running through ways that you can make your age a positive in your work rather than a hindrance. Right, let's start with tech. The stereotypical image of anyone older is that they just don't understand modern digital ways of doing things, and frequently we sabotage ourselves too by referring to how we remember when we used to boot up desktops running Windows 3.1. Try to avoid that. Firstly, it dates you, but secondly, it's just not relevant to the modern world either. There's no reason at all why you can't be au fait with modern office tech as au fait as anyone else. But in fact I go one better. To put any suggestion that I, along with older tech, am obsolete, I really spend more time than ever on my technical understanding, even when it's not particularly relevant to what I do. That way, when you are around, people never have to slow down to take into account what they perceive to be your lack of knowledge. It also means that frequently you can help other younger people out. It's a world away from that stereotypical image of the geriatric dinosaur that actually still lives in the minds of some people. Another quick tech hack: make sure you're using the current technological hardware. This, for example, replaced my notepad some years ago. It's called a Remarkable, and it's just as flexible and useful as your old notepad. It means you can appear in meetings without looking like you've just stepped out of the last century. Next up, let's talk about a really tricky area. We're all aware that the world of team working and relationships in the office has changed pretty dramatically in the last few years, and I'm going to suggest 2 rules here that cannot help but assist when negotiating the world of interpersonal relationships with co-workers. First, this one is quite tricky, but never assume any political position of any co-worker or make any type of better in my day type of comment about the way in which offices are run. You may get away with it on occasion, but one day you won't, and it will reinforce the ageist beliefs that people have of you if you seem to be allied to attitudes that are no longer current. Second, and this one is easy, and it's a hard and fast rule as far as I'm concerned. Other than shaking someone's hand, never touch a co-worker, no matter what the circumstances. I know there are a million times when in the past you may have put a consoling arm around someone who's upset or slapped someone on the back to congratulate them, but really today it's just not worth the risk of any type of misinterpretation of your actions. Here's another behavioural suggestion. It's very easy to get into habits if you've been working in a place for a long time. You get a coffee at 11 o'clock. You have lunch at 1, where you open your sandwiches and eat them at your desk. Look, I know this is ridiculous, but if you don't want to pigeonhole yourself, this is the sort of behaviour that older people do. Get out, go for a walk, have a chat, get a different sandwich, anything that doesn't make you look like you're set in your ways. Next, let's talk about clothing. This is all about how people perceive you, and I know it shouldn't be a problem, but in the real world you owe it to yourself to pay attention to your appearance. As a rule of thumb, you should aim to be one level up in terms of formality to the standard office clothes that people wear in your office. If your office is really relaxed with people in shorts and flip-flops, I'd go for chinos and a polo shirt. If that's what everybody wears, I'd go for smarter trousers and an open neck shirt. The overriding aim here is to make sure that what you wear is pretty much invisible to your co-workers, and this approach does that. Go the other way around, i.e. one level down, and a world of pain can ensue. I know that this is very male-centric, but the same thing applies to women, except that women have always had more options, but the principle is the same. Need I add that personal hygiene is critical too? For some reason I always notice hair. Likewise, because you have always bought a size 34-inch waist trousers for the last 20 years, it doesn't mean they still fit you. Invest in a couple of pairs that fit properly and get some plain shirts, and in most cases you're good to go. This alone will actually take years off your life at a stroke in any event. One other thing that we should talk about, and that's working from home. If you're serious about ensuring that you're highly thought of as an older member of the team, make sure of a few things. Make sure you really know your way around the tech elements of working from home. You should try to avoid any instances where the tech gets in the way of your work or people are waiting for you in a meeting. Don't forget that stereotype about old workers being tech dinosaurs. Log in early where you can to check all is well. I would consider buying a different remote camera. Almost all laptops these days have a reasonable camera, but they're all positioned very low down, and that's not a particularly flattering angle for an older face. Try to mount a camera at head height. I've also added my own microphone, and I use a standing desk in my setup at home. All of this helps, and if you remember the last video about meetings, it's not easy to fall asleep when you're standing up. I try and make sure that the background behind me is clean and uncontroversial as well. If that's not possible, make sure you have your background settings sorted. All of these measures really should not be needed in a world that's genuinely free from prejudice, but we know, having reached a more senior age, let's say, that the wish and the reality are two separate entities. By covering all these points, you can make sure that people judge you for your contribution, which is no doubt huge, rather than some age-related prejudgment. Have I missed any? I'd love to hear some more suggestions if you've got them. Put them in the comments and I'll sweep them up into a third video if you like. And good luck.